So, Ravens flock, we are officially on a winning streak. We're coming off of a pretty solid win last night against the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football, with the final score being 28-6. There's a lot to be optimistic about coming off of this game. Again, I don't think this is the greatest win imaginable because, again, this was the Miami Dolphins are just a dumpster fire. Like, they are in the midst of a death spiral. Like, as of like an hour or two ago, they just fired their GM Chris Greer. Like, but still, this is a win that, if we are truly a good team that should get back on track, this was a win that we needed and should have gotten, and we were able to bring it home. Lamar Jackson was able to make a return to his home state to play against the Dolphins, who he's had phenomenal games against in the past and continues to add to that. He was 18 for 23 with 204 passing yards and 4 touchdowns and no picks. I think his passer rating was about 142, and now he becomes, as far as quarterbacks and how much touchdowns they've had against a specific opponent in their first five meetings against that opponent, Lamar is now second all time in that statistic, where he has 18 touchdowns against the Miami Dolphins in the 5 games that they have played in, which is like incredible. But I mean, the offense, obviously, with Lamar in there, they look a lot better. Still, major concerns that we cannot overlook. Like, this offensive line still is hot garbage. They can't open up holes for Derrick Henry. Like, even when you're watching, like, there was one specific play while I was watching Derrick Henry made the most out of a situation on the play I was thinking of, where he bounced to the outside and was able to gain, like, I think it was like 30 or 40 yards, but like the entire interior offensive line just collapsed in that moment. And again, that's been the story for the past several seasons now, unfortunately. And it still doesn't seem as though Eric Acosta actually wants to make a move to improve that, unfortunately. Also, even though I'm happy Pat Ricard is back, in this specific game, Pat Ricard was getting demolished. Like, there was at least 2 to 3 plays where Pat Ricard was getting absolutely obliterated by the Miami Dolphins defensive linemen. Like, there's at least 2 to 3 plays. One being in the red zone, right when Lamar threw that touchdown to Charlie Kolar. If you go back and watch that, Pat Ricard was getting killed. And then also, uh, at some point later in the game, Bradley Chubb had just completely ran over Pat. Like Pat wasn't a 300-pound fullback, like, which was crazy to see. But I, you know, I don't really put that all on Pat Ricard. At the end of the day, he's just trying to do his job, and he's a fullback. So if he makes a mistake or has a bad game blocking, I'm not looking at that as the end of the world, because we've seen many instances of him doing a very good job blocking at the fullback position. But I do think it's a big deal when, again, we have guards who still can't do their job. But again, I don't want to spend too much of this video being negative. At the end of the day, this is still a solid win. Zay Flowers had a pretty solid game, 5 catches for 64 yards, where he made a couple people miss, which was very fun to watch. Of course, like, to see how shifty he is. Sometimes that shifty nature can bite him in the butt, because he'll end up wasting time and dancing and not actually getting any yards. But in this game specifically, he was able to make people miss with that shiftiness, so that was nice to see. We got a couple touchdowns to Mark Andrews, Charlie Kolar, Rashad Bateman. Isaiah Likely was able to really get things going in this game. He only had like 3 catches, but he had 60 yards, including that 135-yard pass at the end of the first quarter. Derrick Henry had a really tough go the first half, only 30 yards on 9 attempts, but we really were able to pick things up towards the end of the game when he finished with 119 yards. I like the fact that we kept the starters out there late into that game, because that goes into what I've been saying, which is we cannot have the mentality, the old school mentality of, hey, let's take our foot off the gas. We got this game under control. Like, because even though on paper that I understand why people want to do that, because of the fact that you're trying to lower the risk of people getting hurt. We have seen over the past 17 years that these Harbaugh-led teams, once they let their foot off the gas, we collapse almost every time, and we blow big leads over and over again. I mean, that's what happened against the Dolphins, 2-3 seasons ago. Like, we all remember that game. And even though they didn't put any more points up once we got to 28, we didn't put any more points up, but we still kept our foot on the gas as far as actually playing as if we still needed to score points. You could see the difference. And again, I'm not saying we have to put up 40 points. Like, when I say we have to put our foot on the gas, I'm not saying we have to score 40, 50, 60 points every week. I'm just saying we have to go out there with the mentality of, hey, there's 60 minutes in this game. We can't just play hard for 30 minutes and just because we got a 14-point lead, we just take the rest of the game off, And in this game, I do feel as though they stayed focused, they stayed locked in for the entire 60 minutes. So that was nice to see. Defensively, we had a solid game defensively. I'm trying to keep it I'm trying to put it within the context of the game, of the team that we're playing, because we're not playing a offensive juggernaut. This Dolphins team is not what it was 2 years ago. Tyreek Hill is hurt, unfortunately. A lot of this whole Dolphins team has kind of collapsed. People have adjusted to Mike McDaniel's scheme. People realize how limited Tua is. So, like, it's not a awful offense. They have talent like Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle, who both had pretty solid games. Like, Devon Achane was doing very well in the first half. He couldn't really get much going in the second half. Jalen Waddle had a decent day with like 80 yards against us, but we were able to keep them in check, which is what I was expecting, or what I was hoping for at least. And we held them to 6 points. And even though on paper that makes it sound amazing, I still don't want to get too excited over this defense, because there were still moments throughout the game where this secondary looked questionable. And if we had played a better team with a better quarterback who actually has a real arm, we could have really been in trouble. But what I really enjoyed about this game defensively was just the fact that they were opportunistic. A few opportunities came about to force this point. Like I said last video, we don't need them to be elite, and even though I want them to be paid, and they have the status and reputation of that, in reality they're not elite. But if they could just be average with the amount of points we put up with Lamar, that'll still be enough to get us very far. We can win a lot of games. And a game like this was a great example where, even though we held them to 6, I don't think they had the greatest game. But when the opportunities were there, they forced turnovers. So it doesn't even matter at that point. They got 2 fumbles. They forced and recovered 2 fumbles. And late in the game, Malachi got his first interception. This was really the first game where Malachi Starks actually looked good, because I tried to avoid talking about him specifically the past couple weeks, because so far in his rookie season he's looked bad. That's the nicest way I could put it. But I felt he had a really nice showing, and also that interception was impressive. He basically mossed the smaller defender. And also Mike Green, another rookie, he had a half a sack in his game. Granted, it was a sack where Tua basically surrendered himself, but it still counts. So as of right now, Mike Green, he's on a 2-game streak of at least half a sack. Hopefully he could use that to build confidence on top of getting the reps that he needs to really have the experience and the confidence necessary to be that guy, the guy that we need him to be. Because in all likelihood, the Ravens aren't going to make a move for anybody who's truly game changing on the defensive line. So we absolutely need we absolutely need Mike Green to really develop as fast as possible and tap into his full potential. Overall, as far as how excited I was after this win, I would say a 6 out of 10 because again, I do think we could go a lot higher than what we did in this game. And also Lamar, even though he finished with a very efficient game, in the beginning of the game, he did look a bit rusty, which is to be expected because he hadn't played in a month. And also, to me, I'm just still very concerned about this offensive line. They still look embarrassing out there. But either way, what matters is we got 2 wins in a 5-day stretch. And just 7 days ago, we were 1-5, and we were spiraling, going through a death spiral when it comes to our season. And now we've gotten 2 very solid wins and we're picking up steam. We get a mini bye now before we have to go play. I think it's either the Browns or the Jets or whoever. We'll see in a couple of days who it is. And this is still the right place we need to be. We all know the Steelers are frauds. The Bengals, they're not a real threat. They're a threat offensively, but overall as a team, they're not that big of a threat. So we still can absolutely go on a run to take this division. So I'm excited. Let me know, were you excited about this win? Was there anybody who stood out to you? Guys like Teddy Buchanan and Marlon Humphrey and Mike Green and Brent Urban. Was there anybody specifically who stood out to you? And do you think that we can make a trade for one of these players on the Dolphins, like Bradley Chubb? Because the Dolphins just fired their GM, so I think that's signaling that they are in the beginning stages of a fire sale. Do you think there's somebody we could get off of that team, or do you think we should just focus on other teams and other players?